Well, welcome to the Aging Boomers. I'm your host, Frank Sampson. Of course, on this show, we discuss so many of the issues facing boomers, their parents, siblings, and of course, what we know as an aging population. I can't wait to begin interviewing our guest today. But I want to remind everybody that today's show is sponsored by Senior Care Authority, a professional senior placement and elder care management organization that has a national network of advisors to help in determining the right path for senior living and receiving proper care or even supervision. So whether it's in-home care, assisted living, residential, or memory care, get the necessary advice from a senior care advisor in your area by calling Senior Care Authority at 888-809-1231, or you can go directly to the website at www.seniorcareauthority.com. And before I introduce our guests, I want to thank everybody for all their support. We're just getting, every single day, our listeners are increasing. Not that we do a show every day, we're doing it twice a week, but so many of you are going on to iTunes, iHeartRadio, our website, or many are also downloading our free app. If you have an iPhone or Android phone, just go to your apps and type in Aging Boomers, and you can keep up to date on all of our shows. So thanks for all your support, and get the word passed on to family and friends. So I'd like to introduce our guest today, Carolyn Brent. So Carolyn's the founder of Grandpa's Dream, a program that provides vital information for the care and welfare of sick and disabled people and supports the mental, physical, and emotional well-being of caregivers. Carolyn is a nationally acclaimed author, speaker, and caregiver advocate, and she has dedicated her life to preparing the elderly and their caregivers to face end-of-life issues. She is also founder of Caregiver Story, a nonprofit organization that provides free medical and legal resources to the public through a powerful website, which we'll learn more about, that attracts up to over 100,000 visitors monthly. Carolyn travels throughout the United States lecturing about the importance of adult siblings and their parents having what she calls crucial conversations in preparation for the end-of-life issues they may face. Carolyn, thanks so much for joining us on the Aging Boomers.
I tell you, Frank, it's an honor to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's you've got quite a bit of experience in this business. You've been in it for a while, but I'd love to learn more on how did you get involved. I'm always interested to see reasons people got involved in the industry.
Well, Frank, the way I got involved was like this. I was doing what most Americans do on a daily basis. We either go to our jobs, we go to school, or in my case, I had just gotten a promotion in the pharmaceutical to like the best job I thought I could ever dream of because I worked really hard for that. And as I was getting on the airplane, I got a sudden and unexpected telephone call telling me, "Are you Carolyn Brent?" I said, "Yes." And I said, "Oh my goodness," my heart started just pounding. "Well, your dad is having a problem. Can you come and check on your dad?" And I got to tell you, Frank, when I got that sudden and unexpected telephone call, I immediately and suddenly became my father's caregiver. I didn't know I was a caregiver. The doctor said, "Thank God you're your caregiver, because if you did not come, your father could have died." So that's when I started thinking, like, I'm a caregiver? No. Caregivers work in hospitals. This was back in the 90s. And I'm going, caregivers work in hospitals. And then once I started thinking of the fact, like, really, I am my father's caregiver. He needs me. My life changed immediately and has never been the same. That's how I got involved with this business.
So tell us more about your father. What happened to him? You mind sharing kind of the story there?
Yeah. Yeah, the story was early on, like in the late 90s, my father was diagnosed with the early stages of dementia. But back then, I didn't really know about dementia. I'm thinking like, okay, the doctor said, he forgets his car keys every now and then or misplaces, a pill. And I'm thinking like, well, we all do those things. I was in denial. I'm thinking that my superhero, he's okay. So, of course, my father, once he came to live with me, I'm still allowing my father to drive his car because I thought, what's there to going, to down the street and around the corner to the store? What's up with that? It's not a problem. Let me just let Dad have the keys. So one day, Frank, I let Dad have the keys. He was supposed to go 2 blocks away to the grocery store, and I was working in my home office, and I peeked my head out the window looking like, okay, a half an hour's passed, Dad's not home. Another half an hour, Dad's not home. This is like the very first time. Found out Dad was 200 and something odd miles away in a city called Yuba City, which I'd never heard of. That was one incident. So then, of course, Dad comes back. I take away the keys. The incident when I was getting on an airplane, coming back to flying back to Sacramento, was when my father, I still was not, still in denial. I was the caregiver that stayed in denial that Dad is really not sick. He's just making some mistakes. So I was getting on the airplane, and I got that phone call. My father had went jogging, fell on his head, and he was at the St. Medical Center, and they said, "We stitched your dad up. Come and get him." And I said, "I'm in Burbank. Hold on to my dad. Hold on to him. Don't let him go." And then she said, "Well, I'm sorry. He's ready to go." That's when I said, "My daddy has dementia. Don't let him go." That was the first time I got out of the denial stage and I went into the action stage because I recognize my daddy truly has a problem. So what I did, I learned all that I could learn because I worked in the medical industry for pharmaceuticals. I learned all I could learn about dementia, about the different stages that he could possibly go through. And he was in that mild stage several years prior, and then I still ignored it because Dad seemed cognitive, he seemed normal, but I kept saying, well, I forget things too, so he's going to be all right. Let's just give him a pill. And at that particular time, there's only one pill on the market for people with dementia, right. And that pill was like taking placebo for him because my father, his dementia continued to get worse. But I got to say this, when my father took that fall, I didn't know to ask the doctors, well, did you x-ray his skull? I just was so happy to, that they held onto Dad, and Dad just had a few stitches until I thought, well, they're doctors. They should, they said Dad is fine. But my father's skull was cracked, and nobody knew for 7 years that my father had cracked his skull. So that's it was a continuum. We're thinking it's dementia, and it was actually Dad had a cracked skull. So I became an advocate, Frank, for so many different reasons. Number one, to really teach families how crucial it is to have these conversations early when your parents are cognitive and they are healthy and they could make choices. And then there's families, Frank, that would say, my mom or dad or my loved one, they don't want to make a choice because they don't want the adult children to fight. And my attitude is this: if you don't make a choice now when you're cognitive and you're healthy, do you want the state to make those choices for you? Right. Or have your adult kids in the hospital fighting at your bedside, thinking that, mom or dad or your loved one? Because, if we think about it, anyone can become chronically ill and anybody could become a caregiver. So what I try not to do is to put a label on what a caregiver looks like. I actually had an 11-year-old caregiver on my show 2 weeks ago. I was actually shocked. She said that she's a caregiver. I said, well, could you tell me why are you calling yourself a caregiver? She said, well, my mom is taking care of her mother that has cancer, and my job is to read to my grandmother, and I read her favorite books, and I ask her questions. And anytime my grandma could get out of bed, I have my grandma to help me pick pick flowers. She said, well, I'm caring for my grandmother to keep her busy. And I thought, oh my God, this is a family affair, an 11-year-old caregiver. So I don't put an age on it. I don't put a label on it. Caregivers come in all races, creed, religion, and colors. So what we have to do as just human beings, we have to quit being in denial about health and embrace the end of life by having the conversations early. And I always share with people, I'm the author of a book called The Caregiver's Companion. And
right.
In that book, I always say there's only 4 major documents you need to have in place. So put them in place right now, and then just resume your life. So if and when there's a sudden and unexpected emergency, you have all the paperwork.
Yeah. We certainly emphasize on this show for people to prepare, and you're emphasizing that as well. I mean, the reality, unfortunately, is still a lot of people don't prepare. So you were confronted with your father's situation. I know you hadn't written your book yet. You were just at the beginning stages of getting into the industry. But were you prepared? Were you prepared at that time, or did you kind of have to learn the hard way also?
I got to tell you, we thought we were prepared. And what I mean by that we thought, Frank, that we were prepared, my father was a veteran, and we had gone to the Veterans Administration, and my father had named me fiduciary. He had me as his medical directive. He had every documentation in my name. He signed it. I took a pledge, and I thought that was it. That's what I thought. And I had, at the time, 7 other adult siblings that lived around the country. So I tried to get my siblings involved, but they simply said, Carolyn, we're busy. We have our lives. You don't have any kids. Daddy girl, you do it. You're doing a very good job. You do it. So guess what? I did the job. I did it with love. I spent my money when Dad was running out of money. I said, okay, and I was earning a very, very, very good income as a clinical education manager, well over 6 figures. So when it came time that Dad needed private assistant living, I actually put that in a place. It's a continuum, costly effect. It went from $2,000 a month, and it continued to rise up to a grand total of $6,500 because we were private pay. So when Dad had another unexpected, life-threatening emergency, guess what? My family wanted to get involved. All of a sudden, they wanted to take over because Dad, according to the doctor, my father was supposed to die. So I found myself with a restraining order on me, not in 1 county, but in 3 counties in California, Contra County, Alameda County, and San Joaquin. And that was when I realized that Dad and I did not have the proper paperwork in order because the state said, oops, sorry, we don't recognize the federal government at all. The paperwork doesn't, we don't acknowledge that. And I said, what do you mean? These are my daddy's choices. And because they would not recognize that, that was when I became an advocate to change the laws so that the state could recognize federal could recognize state, and to get, to this day, my father's wishes were never fulfilled. He's deceased now, but I'm still on the mission, and I have gone to legislation. There's videos of that, TV programs of that, gone to legislation, fighting to stop something that has a label, and I didn't know it had a label. It's called vexatious litigation, simply meaning accusing a person of doing harm, and it's not true. So that is a misdemeanor right now in California. I'm trying to get the laws changed to a felony so families don't have to go through what I went through. And also, I'm sharing with people, if Dad and I had have known back in the 90s, we would have filed with the state. That would not have been a problem. But we thought that filing the necessary paperwork to the federal government, that we had the paperwork in order. We had it in order for the federal benefits, but we did not have it with the state, and the state doesn't recognize federal.
Right,
and that was what happened to my dad.
So when did you write
and
the
me.
book, the Caregiver's Companion, and tell us a little bit about the book and how people could benefit from that?
Okay, well, first I wrote another book in 2011. It's called Why Wait? The Baby Boomer's Guide to Preparing Emotionally, Financially, and Legally for the Death of a Parent, which went number one on Amazon back in 2011.
Wow,
and everyone was shocked. Then I ended up getting a book deal with Harlequin 2 years ago that said, oh my God, we really, really love this. There's nothing like this. So the new book is called The Caregiver's Companion, Caring for a Loved One, Medically and Financially and Legally, while taking care of yourself. So it's a book that I interviewed over, emotionally, I interviewed over 1,500 caregivers worldwide. And I got to tell you, Frank, there was one common denominator that they all had. I said, if you had to be a caregiver all over again, what would you do differently? 99% of the 1,500 said, I would take better care of me. That's what they said. And as a result, I'm really, really pushing caregivers when they are in the trenches of the tricky waters of caregiving. You've got to take the time to take care of yourself. That's why respite is important. Private assisted living. I tell people get your insurance in order when you're healthy and young, so you don't have to pay out of pocket like I did. I paid out of pocket. I was happy to pay out of pocket, but once again, paying out of pocket.
Oh, did I lose you there?
Oops.
There you go. Oh, I think I lost you for a second, Carolyn.
Oh, no, I'm here.
There you are.
I'm here. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. So, maybe so I don't forget to ask you, because there's still a lot of information to cover. But how can people get the book? Is it easiest just to go to Amazon or all of your books? Yeah.
I am so honored. My book is worldwide, every place. It's in Amazon, every bookstore, Walmart, Target, you name it, airports. My book is every place. The Congress of Library of Congress. This is such an epidemic until the book has gone viral. When Harlequin released my book, they sold out of books literally before we launched the book. So they had to do a second run right after they just released the book, which was January 27th. So I'm really, really thankful for that, and I will continue to work with the legislators and to get the laws changed right in California. I'm not native, but I've lived in California for over 30 years of my life. Absolutely love it, and I will be back dealing and speaking with the legislation to get the laws changed to protect not only the chronically ill, but the caregiver as well.
That's wonderful, and we appreciate everything you do and you've done. I'd like to talk a little bit about these conversations to have with parents, and as you know, I'm in the business, in the industry as well, and many times you have the adult children that say, they're just uncomfortable bringing it up to mom and dad. They'll talk about what happens after they pass away, but it doesn't seem like there's strong conversations if somebody were to become, disabled, they were to get dementia, they're going to need care, in-home care, assisted living, whatever the case. And it's just not talked about, and sometimes, and the parent doesn't necessarily want to talk about it either. So what suggestions do you have to get it out in the open, instead of having to be confronted with situations where they're in crisis mode?
Yeah, that's, the crisis mode is what I tell people to avoid. In the Caregiver Companion, I have a guide to share with families. There's always someone in the family that's close to the parents, whoever that person is. In every family, there's always that one. So if there's that one sibling that's close with the parent, that sibling should be like the spokesperson for all the adult kids, and the adult kids may not get along, they may not like each other. That's just, different dynamics in different families. But let's say there's someone that's close to mom and dad. Get your own paperwork in order first. And what I mean by that, if I'm going to be the spokesperson, that means I'm going to go and get a trust. I'm going to get a medical directive. I'm going to get a name of fiduciary. I'm going to go get all the paperwork in order. If I need a living trust or a medical directive, it's important to have a medical directive, because if I walk outside and get hit by a bus, the hospital's going to say, who is your proxy? Who has the medical authority to make decisions for you? Okay, so when the spokesperson in the family wants to talk to mom and dad, you go with all your own done. Mom, dad, what do you think about this? Or whoever you're taking care of, what do you think about, what I've done? Make the investment in my future for the sudden and unexpected challenges or changes that may happen in my life. This is my living insurance policy. And that's what I call it, a living insurance policy. And then mom and dad are going to be more open to have that conversation when you have your paperwork in order. So does that make sense, Frank, in regards to the approach?
Absolutely.
So once we have our paperwork in order, and I got to I want to clarify one thing. You don't have to go through an attorney. You could go on LegalZoom.com and get all the legal documents you need, and then make sure you get everything notarized so it's authentic, that it's from you. So that's a very inexpensive way to do it yourself. But if you have real estate or anything complex, it's better to a elder law attorney or a real estate attorney that specializes in end of life. You don't want to go to one attorney, one-stop fix-it-all. You want it to be a specialty. I went to an elder law attorney for myself because they know all the different loopholes and different things. So after you do that, then you take it to the siblings. The spokesperson will talk to the siblings. Look, gang, this is what I've done. I think it would be really, really good if we all have all of our paperwork in order some kind of way, and let's sit down and have schedule a meeting. We could do it on Skype if you live in a different city. We could do it on freeconferencecall.com. We could do it on Facebook, in the private group. There's many different ways to have that conversation, and you have to ask, Mom, Dad, or loved one, if you had 5 wishes in your life for end of life, what would that be? And the bottom line is, they would say, well, I want to die with dignity. How do you die with dignity? I want all my kids. My father used to say, I want all my kids at my funeral together. I want to, if I don't want to be resuscitated, or I do want to be resuscitated, or I want to donate my organs to science. Whatever those 5 wishes are, that needs to be in writing. Everything needs to be in writing so that when your loved one passes away, there's not going to be folks in the halls of the hospital fighting, saying, well, I want to resuscitate mom or dad or the chronically ill, to someone like, oh, you're trying to kill them because you're not giving them water or food or whatever the situation is. So we all have to take ownership. We all have to be responsible for that sudden and unexpected change of life, because it could happen to anyone. So I always say, don't think that it has to be to an older person. People are dying younger and younger and younger each and every day. Just turn on the news. We see that. But once you go to the hospital, if there is nothing in place and the family is fighting, I say, guess what? You're saying, state of California or state of Florida, whatever state you're living in, the state will make all of those decisions for you. So I'd say, do you want a stranger from the state to come and make end-of-life wishes for yourself or for your loved one? Is that what you really, really want? And when people, Frank, when they think about it like that, it makes sense to them to get their life insurance. And life insurance is just basically not like a death insurance or a death policy. What about a life policy? Putting everything in writing while you're living and you're cognitive and you're happy. That's the best time to do it, because then you are saying, these are my wishes. And then the family could work together and create legacy. And that is what's so important, family legacy.
Yeah,
so that is the books that I write. My daddy's all the way through it, because although my family did not have legacy, it was actually, horrible what happened to my family at the end. But I always say it doesn't have to happen in your family or someone else's family. If we sit down and we get our own paperwork together, and then we go, okay, it's really easy. It's very simple. It's not that expensive if you do it yourself, or it may cost a couple of $1,000s baseline. That's a baseline price for estate, getting an attorney to do your estate. I have found that from California, I've paid like $2,000 to $2,500, and in Florida, I've paid up to $2,700 of changing states. So just get the paperwork in order.
Yeah,
and then you'll be glad you did.
Carolyn, I'm sure have advised families of this. If you wait too long, all right, and if a loved one does end up with some form of dementia, like Alzheimer's, that whole personality can change, and also you might not legally be able to get a signature on a piece of paper. So, waiting too long is going to, be way more problems than anybody needs, as you know. Like you mentioned at the beginning,
Absolutely.
as far as courts getting involved, a lot of people think, well, God,
Right.
we have a close family, and we'll make the decisions. But really, you may not be able to make those decisions if you didn't get a power of attorney in place or things like that. So
yes.
So,
and another thing
Yeah,
that I've noticed, the 5 stages of grieving, people grieve differently at different times. I was in denial when I first learned that my dad had dementia, and then some of my siblings, they thought, Carolyn, I don't accept that. So the, denial, the acceptance, the depression, the bargaining, the anger, and then back to acceptance. People could be at different stages in the family all at the same time. That can really make it very sticky.
Yeah. So we're kind of almost out of time here, but I want to make sure, and we'll have to have you back in the future, but share with everybody, your website, how they can get a hold of you, how can they learn more about your books, etc. So why don't you share that? And
I would love to.
Okay.
Well, caregiverstory.com, it has everything I've ever done in my life when it comes to elder care or chronically ill or caregiving support. If you go there, there's a couple of videos, and you guys know Julie Wang, she's on Channel 9 in the Bay Area. I've been on several programs in the Bay Area. There's legislative piece that I'm talking to the legislators. So everything that I've ever done is on caregiverstory.com. Free resources worldwide to every place. Then you can go to Amazon. All my books are there, and it gives the history. There's wonderful reviews. I just got a review from the Journal Library, which means now the Caregiver's Companion, Caregiver Companion, caring for your loved one medically, financially, and emotionally while caring for yourself, is in every library in the United States. I'm very proud of that. So, or you could Google my name. All my information is very easy to get to.
Great.
And that's it.
Carolyn Brent, thank you so much for joining us. We'll have to have you back in the future for sure. And you're a wealth of information, and thanks again for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
And thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
And I want to thank everybody out there for joining us. Be safe out there, and we'll talk to you all soon.